Esteemed colleagues, we are starting the briefing. We'll be talking about the reform of science. About a month ago we had the briefing on that. There are several options of what could be done with that. There are several drafts on that, but there should be a consensus achieved, and one draft is to be submitted to Verkhovna Rada. I would like to invite our speakers, Maksym Strikha, Deputy Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine, Nataliya Shulga, Chief Expert of RPR, and Oleksiy Skrypnyk, MP. Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. We're starting our briefing. As many of you know, we had the meeting of the Committee on Education and Science. 4 laws drafts were considered: 2244A, 22E. The drafts and each one of the drafts had both positive and negative issues. But what is important to find something which would unite all these 4 drafts. So the working group was set up in order to take the best, to find the best things in each one of 4 drafts. And in the result, 2244A draft was developed, and we hope that in the future we'll be also looking for the best option that that helps us find the best draft. Now I would like to give the floor to my colleagues who will talk about the drafts themselves. Thank you. The esteemed colleagues, Ukraine has been looking forward to see some changes in scientific sphere. We've been talking a lot about that. There was a meeting in times of Kuchma in 96. There was a commission of Yatsky-Brukhovetsky in 2005. It all ended up in some talks, but the situation hasn't been changed. The Ukrainian science was stagnating, and only thanks to the heroism of Ukrainian scientists, Ukraine is still among the leading scientific states in the world. The changes are to take place because we signed an association with the European Union standards. Also, the science is a difficult, complicated thing which is being developed for dozens of years, and we need to make very careful steps, and all the positive that we have shouldn't be ruined. The work was very lengthy, and the government introduced the draft in the beginning of May, after Oleksiy Skrypnyk mentioned the draft took into account for other drafts, and it is important that we were looking not for the possibility what is better, but we were trying to think what is better for Ukrainian scientists, and the draft which is ready for the second reading basically what has been done is the preparation for the second reading. And we hope that if the MPs find time to consider that very important draft, then Ukrainian science will feel positive consequences, because we need a new law. In times of war, science is our security, is our national security. Thank you.
I would like to thank all the participants in this process, since different ministries, profile ministers were involved in this effort, to all the members of the Verkhovna Rada. Some of them were co-authors of the alternative draft laws, and it should be understood that the tension was rather high. And I would like to know at this point of time, as a major expert of the RPR group, Science.Technology.Innovations, which first started to work since September last year on this platform, but now we will represent also in the working group, meaning to say that we remain on those principles which we used when working on the first draft law submitted to the government. The major three principles are as follows: decentralization of management in science, in other words, setting up the National Council and the new tools of interaction between the scholars, scientists, and the authorities, on which funding depends, and quick decision making. The structure remained the way we proposed. We're talking about two scientific research committees and administrative committee, which the latter is headed by the Prime Minister of Ukraine, and we do hope that our science is going to reach the level of the top priority realms of development of Ukrainian economy. Number two is the criminalization of the innovation. I mean, this new trend, because if you're talking about just the competitive basis to be introduced together with the young researchers, starting from them all the way up to the big networks and companies which will create the compatibility of our competitiveness of our country. And the third, the Euro integration principles. Over this point, the period of time, we already carry out those commitments are taken by us in order to integrate our science into European, the global space. All the work which started last September resulted in a very constructive results. I would like to emphasize that for the first time ever, we involved the scientific community, like the Council of Young Researchers and the scientific associations, public organizations. This effort turned out to be very fruitful and constructive. Once again, I would like to note that this is only the first step. We should not believe that this law is, let's say, the remedy for everything. We have to remember about that, and very important to follow how Verkhovna Rada is going to work during this week, because tomorrow, the agenda for tomorrow contains the first reading of this draft law, and if the Verkhovna Rada will vote for the short procedure, because our working group, as I mentioned before, verified all the articles, all the provisions, prepared them for the second reading, and if we have this kind of short procedure, then we'll have enough time till November 26th to adopt this draft law as a whole and to be included in the budget process for the next year and start do something about that. We still hope that our RPR takes care of advocacy, and we call upon all the establishments, not only the profile committee, to understand that this reform is long awaited by the science, and we have to vote for that and give all the support to this draft law. Do you understand properly that this is the only position of or there are going to be some alternative ones? No, it's this is This is one of the rare cases when the target-oriented reform has only one version, target-oriented. It seems to me that this is a step which the Verkhovna Rada had to use further on, because if you're talking about the tax reform, which contains very positive things, both in the rescue project and the Uzhanin draft, I mean, we could do something about that, what we could do about the draft laws about our research activities. We did not try to decide which is right, which is wrong, but we really had a very well balanced discussion. We still have a few of the things which are mostly of technical or rather organizational nature. We have to take care of some organizational form of the existence of some of the institutions, but all the rest, the authors of all the four draft laws, they reached the consensus. They found some compromise between the formation ideas, and actually we dealt not with the competition of the ideas. Actually, we did everything possible when everybody wished to come up with a single draft law, and we try to follow the standards and regulations of the European Union, how they work with such draft laws, similar draft laws. Any other questions? Andrei, Humanits Internet Portal, Economic News. This draft law, is it closely related to other reforms, to reform education, etc., etc.? This is question number one. Number two, what kind of reform and steps in the Ministry of Education within the framework of science or research you're going to make in addition to this draft law, which can be done quickly without involving such a big mechanism as Verkhovna Rada? Thank you very much for your questions. Definitely, this draft law is correlated with the already adopted law on the higher education, and also it has to be correlated with innovation activities which are being worked on today, and which are also very important. As for the steps taken today, of course we take some of those steps. Unfortunately, and not everything we can do, despite the fact that those draft laws are very important. But we managed to improve the competition system. By the way, all the researches in the higher education institutions are based on the competition basis and principles. Unfortunately, we do not have the basic fund for financing, but we do not have any basic finance in universities. But this competition procedure has been much improved. Just to give you an example, the decision is taken by the researchers themselves. So under the ministry we have the research or the academic council, including the leading doctors of sciences working in Ukraine. For this year, it was the first time ever we can collected not only the names, but their achievements, attainments, filter them out. Actually, we actually collected about 700 out of 1,000 proposals. Now different sections of this council are going to take care of electing their chairpersons. And of course, we would like to have those chairpersons, not directors, as was the case before, because directors have their own things to take care of. So we are talking about the specific competition for financing for the different research. And what we have to further develop our research in order to, we have the warfare, and we have to take care of some researches directed to resolve some of those problems. And there was a very important function initiated by the Ministry of Education and Science in Kharkiv with the participation of the local administration or leading offices and the Ministry of Defense, when we are talking about the shortest possible way from the laboratory, from the research laboratory to the manufacturer of those things which are very important, of critical importance to the Ministry of Defense or to the defense capability of our country. And we signed the agreements with the four leading universities in Kharkiv. And I believe this will result in some specific defense technologies which will enable us to increase our defense capability and to save the lives of our guys in the eastern parts of Ukraine. Thank you. My question regarding this draft law, correct me if I'm mistaken, it has to radically change the system of financing. And to some extent, it will put a way to differentiate the Academy of Sciences from this procedure. Well, this is kind of compromise, so you do not exclude the possibility of some kind of attempts to change the mechanism, which has been in existence for decades. And in continuation of this question, what will happen? For example, we have the Institute of Chemistry, just an example, what came to my mind, first of all. And for example, they declare some kind of tender or the competition of contents. This institute is not the winner of this contest, so how the financing will take place for this institute? Well, I'm sorry for this kind of very, this kind of the question, but thank you.
Fortunately, we were not thinking about removing. We are not removing. The functions are corrected, adjusted, because previously the National Academy had to coordinate all fundamental research. We understand it. Basically, no one was removed. The National Academy still has a very important function. It has basic financing. The Institute of Chemistry will not die. It depends on how this institute works. Also, new mechanisms of funding are introduced via National Research Fund, where the Institute of Chemistry will be able to submit grants as the institute, the employees of the institute.
Грантів для молодих дослідників, себто
The law is about diversification. There are ideology of the law is not about diminishing someone's role. And the basic financing, what is it? The institute receives some, will receive some money to pay salary to the personnel, irrespective of whether this institute will get grant or not. In our case, the basic funding was the only financing. The state was financing science. Also, basic financing did not depend on the results of the activity. Those who work well and those who work badly, they were financed similarly. This law preserves basic financing. Sometimes people believe that grants will be sufficient, but in Poland there are 4 groups. Group A allows to increase financing, B same level, C reduce, and D probably closing the institution. Sometimes the research institutions are to be closed. If you ask the Society of Max Planck how many institutes they have, they will say approximately 70. But in our case, nothing changes, even if the institution is not efficient. If the law is passed, I hope this will not be the case. Efficient will be supported. Thank you. I would like to add that basic financing includes also financing of internal programs or topics, and there are certain money there that will be preserved, but we add new instruments which will show us the possibility of dynamics, of changes, and the results, which will be taken into account when the decisions are made, which segments require attention. This is not discriminatory law. That is the law which will open up the possibility to involve different instruments of funding. We hope that we will have instruments to better attract international cooperation and international money and get orders. The program Horizon 2020 has an agreement between business and researchers on big data. 2 billion euros for that are allocated, and we hope that our IT specialists will be very active and competitive participants of this program. We're talking about new breath for science.
Своє там існування. Просто іноді в нас зводилося до того, що низка інститутів.
Very often some institutes just lease out their premises, but they are not conducting their scientific work and research work. Esteemed colleagues, tomorrow the money will not come. The fact that institutes lease out premises, that's not the result of some bad will. The whole science in Ukraine gets less than 5 billion hryvnia. That's the budget of one university in the West.
Законом це динамізм. В Національній академії
The National Academy. I am as a person who worked in the National Academy, I can say there are problems there because for dozens of years the leadership has been the same. Good things are to be preserved, but bad things are to be replaced. Now there is a rule that the leadership could be elected only for 2 terms. And there are novelties about the right to vote. That is an attempt to make the structure more active, but not to ruin it.
Уточнення, якщо припустимо,
If, for example, that draft is passed, what should be happening next? What changes will we see? That means a lot of work. If the law is passed, we will have to launch National Scientific Council. that is the body where will be the representatives of authorities and representatives of the civil society sector. Then certain identification committee should be set up, and they will organize the competition for scientific council. When we have the National Scientific Council, they will start real work, because this will be like a parliament. And they will have to review everything from strategy to priorities and so on. That means a lot of new work, and we hope this will be taking place involving foreign experts. We have conducted negotiations now. We will have an external audit that we started discussing at the European Research Area Committee. For the first time, we will see what foreign experts believe is happening in Ukrainian science. I hope we will involve foreign experts to participate in expert groups and identification committee, in the research fund.
Насправді я
I've told you how that is done in the ministry. Many people are involved. They approve certain things. If we can disseminate that rule to the whole Ukrainian science, then it will be clearer how the budget is spent.
Just one word. We also have to understand which way, how we can make business to join the Ukrainian research, so we could launch the innovation process in a correct manner. So not only we limit ourselves to some discussion, but when they all have their own business, will join us, and we'll be able to start the normal process of innovation development. I have the following question. As far as I could understand, the way of financing which you provided for in the draft law means that part of the academic institutions or research institutions is going to be shut down or closed. So my question is, do you think what to do with those people which will lose their jobs? I would like you to have this systematic approach to the resolving this problem, because we are talking about the militia, the prosecutors, judicial reform. They plan to fire a lot of people. No, thank you for your question. We do not. Our objective is not to deprive the people of their jobs. We would like to more efficiently use the money which are allocated or channeled to the research purposes. In reality, if we consider the institution or the establishment which will have to be closed within the framework of the National Academy of Sciences, there are not just a few people working there, and researchers already left that. So we are talking about some research in scientific institutions which will have to be closed. We can talk about several percent of the researchers, but the number of the researchers, in fact, has to increase in Ukraine. Unfortunately, we came through the downsizing of the number of the researchers from 700,000 to 100,000 if we are talking about the natural sciences, which actually take care of the progress. We decreased their number fivefold. You were talking about the legal culture, whatever else. So nobody has a target to close some kind of research or scientific institutions, because it's clear that some of those this is no secret. There are certain institutions which were established to service certain sectors of the still Soviet planned economy. With the, we do not have that system any longer, but those institutions couldn't find their place. If they could fail to find it within the nearest future, they will have to, they're doomed to be closed, So we could use use their property in the universities, and we have the mechanism for financing, which are provided for by this law, and not only for the research institutions, but some specific efforts. Also, I would like to add that the National Academy of Science already understood that it has to do something in a more active way, and we participate, be more active in its participation in this work. They set up the whole group which works on the methodology of assessment of efficiency of the research, and they base their efforts on the criteria and the indicators used in Germany when they united two different parts of Germany, and in the eastern part of Germany they had a kind of Soviet type academy, and they turned it into the Leibniz society, and during the short period of time they came through the process of assessment. This was very important, because those institutions which remained, they realized that they were going to deal with some other approaches or the assessments, and which enabled them to rank among the higher institutions, and they understand that they were going to go through the most strict assessment. We are talking about the leading institutes, and we, in other words, we work with the Academy of Sciences, and they understand that they have to follow these along this pathway. We are going to involve the foreign experts as well, because it's very important to have the foreign expertise, speaking about what kind of research are carried out or conducted, what contacts are involved, etc., etc. So I believe this year is going to be a decisive one, because there are a lot of very interesting initiatives. Something has been already achieved, and we do hope that this draft law the law is going to adopt this year. And another comment of mine, our RPR group works already on the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers about the National Council, which is going to be approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, because you have to understand, we are talking about these public institutions which are financed from the taxpayers' money, and we are working already on that. The law contains certain details, not all of those, and the most detailed things will be contained in the resolutions of the Cabinet of Ministers. So thank you very much for this optimistic end of our press briefing. We'll be looking forward to see you after the adoption of this law, and we hope that this will happen soon. So please come to us and tell us about the steps related to implementation of this law, because sometimes if nothing is done, it gives birth to some of the fear. Thank you.